Hey guys, and welcome back to Regrexit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland, and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, this week it was Valentine's Day, of course. I haven't done a video from Monday. So I didn't do a video on Valentine's Day, but I did write a Valentine's poem, right, for a Brexit young lady that I know. And these people just now have no sense of humor. It's roses are red, violets are blue. These flowers are so darned expensive ever since we left the EU. Never saw the funny side of it. Never, I was just wasting my time with these Brexiters. I don't know, just for some reason, they just don't seem to have any sense of humour when you put like the EU or Brexit in like a sentence. You are in, I am in, we are in the United Kingdom where 95% of the politicians hates your guts. And I'm going to emphasize this with the first story. With the very first story, we're going to emphasize that because British Gas have put in huge profits, absolutely humongous profits, £72 million British Gas profits in 2022. And in 2023, these ones just released, profits 752. Hold on, no, actually, the first figure was 72 million. Did I say 72? Yeah, first figure was 72 million. And the second figure is 753 million pounds. British Gas. This is a company that should be owned by the British people. It says it's in the title, British. It's in the title, right? Anything that serves the whole country with the name British in it should belong to the people of this country. But no, you've got people in this country who can't afford to pay for gas and electric supplied by British Gas. So they've been living in their house, can't have a bath, can't turn on the heating, have to wash with cold water, have to have an indoor coat because it's so darn cold in their house. And these people are putting it obscene, more than 10 times what they put in for 2022, more than 10 times. Now you tell me, these politicians really like the people of this country if they can allow this kind of obscenity, right? This kind of just greed, right? To just have us just completely ripped off by a company that the British people used to own, and the British people had no say. They did have a say in when it was sold off, because they could have said, well, what, we're not going to vote for anybody who's going to sell off all of our stuff. So they did have a say, but they voted for this bullshit. And now you have people, right, who cannot afford what these people are producing, and these people are telling us, our prices are so high because of Russia. Because we have to it's costing us more money now. So how the hell have you put in the most profits you've ever put in if it's been more expensive to you? So you've had to pass that on to us. No, what's happened is they're just still getting it literally for the same price, and just saying, well, it's costing us more now, so you have to pay more. And the government have just accepted that and said, you know what, don't worry about them people. Because we don't like them anyway. We can't stand their guts, right? That's the reason why we would allow a company that the British people used to own now to be ripping us off, right? To the extent that they're making more than 10 times the amount of profits they made the year before. And welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me. Special thanks to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go for all your messages. I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all your messages for definite. So we're going to go straight over to America, because it seems that Donald Trump has said that he's going to encourage the Russians to invade European countries who have not paid their NATO bill. And Donald Trump has said that a European leader of a big European country came up to him and said, "Sir, if we don't pay," and right there I thought, this is a lie. Every word that comes out of your mouth from now is an absolute lie. That's why I'm not going to say the rest, because it was all a lie. Because, I mean, as a world leader, right, would you call Donald Trump sir? Would you walk up to Donald Trump and say sir? No, because you're undermining your very own position. The people who call Donald Trump sir is us, the lemmings, the minions, right? The worker ants. That's who calls people like that sir. His generals call him sir. Right? Someone who's on an equal footing when he meets them at one of their conferences they go to when they want to spend off all of our money. They're not going to call him sir. And then, I know we've got some world leaders yet that's as probably as thick as King Jong-un's frame. But, right, which world leader is going to go up to him and say to him, if we don't pay, will you protect us? I mean, what kind of answer would you expect? Do you know what I mean? Would you go into a restaurant and say to them, well, I want food. If I don't pay, will that be okay? They'll be like, well, we're glad you told us first. And no, it won't be okay. Now can you leave? I mean, you'd be okay with that answer from the restaurant, right? So if a world leader come up to you and said to you, well, would you protect us if we don't pay our NATO bill? How would that work? Would you? Right. Even though NATO doesn't actually work like that, but anyway, that's all besides the point, because Donald Trump really doesn't know how none of these things work anyway. Do you know what I mean? So that's the reason why they probably want, I don't know. A lot of these people, they want just complete disruption, whatever country they're in. There's people who vote for just, I want to just like smash the status quo to pieces. But NATO doesn't actually work like that anyway. But anyway, let's just go with Donald Trump's thing anyway. But so a world leader, right, to come up to Donald Trump, call him sir, first of all, it's not going to happen, is it? I mean, that's just ridiculous, right? And then to come up with one of the most stupid, childish questions, would you protect me if we don't pay? I mean, you're going to get the comedy answer, aren't you, from them? I mean, they're going to say to you, no, I would encourage Putin to bomb the shit out of you. I mean, you're going to get the comedy answer. I'd say, I'd want Putin. In fact, I'd give Putin the weapons to do it. I mean, that's what you'd get. Listen, if you come up to me and say that you're going to get the real comedy answer, because I'm going to think to myself, this person's a klutz. I've got to give them the most stupid answer I could possibly think of. I'd say, in fact, right, I would say, I will come and bomb you. Forget Putin. You don't pay your NATO bill, I'm going to come and bomb you. That's what seriously. But so we just know that Donald Trump is, we do know that he's one big fat liar. So therefore, we know that this is just a made up story. But then at least, people know where they stand with him. That, he's telling the world already, this is who I am. Right. He wants to come and break NATO up. I mean, that's probably one of his long-term goals anyway. I want to break up NATO. Right. The Americans complaining about, other people not spending, whatever it is on their GDP that they've got to pay into NATO, and the Americans are complaining about that when they've got hundreds of thousands of people living on the motherfucking streets and spending obscene amounts of money on weapons to go and spread democracy, right, in countries where they have no right going into those countries and getting involved in those people's politics, when their own country is in a complete state itself. And Donald Trump has been fined $355 million and banned from business in New York for 3 years too. But that's a huge, I mean, he's already fundraising, of course, but that's one huge amount of money. And I'm going to tell you something, right? And fellas, this one is for you, for the fellas, right? Because there's two things, right, that you must never do in life. Two things. Never, this one's for you fellas, never promise a woman marriage and don't go through with it. She'll fuck you up, okay? Ever she can do to fuck you up, she can fuck you up. Don't promise her marriage and don't go through it. And now this one's for everybody. Never boast about fiddling your taxes. It's the worst thing you can do. I'm sure I must have said this. I'm sure I must have gone through this in videos before. I'm sure if you look through my collection, you will see. I'm quite sure if you search through, you'll probably find out that I've spoken about this before. But don't boast about fiddling your taxes. Ever. If you boast to your friends amongst your own circle and your local people where you live, right, someone's going to grass shot to the taxman. Of course they will. Because you've always in your group, right? There's always people who don't like each other, right? They hang out in the same group. I can't stand him. Can't stand her. Hate her. Can't stand him. Right? I wish an axe fell from the sky and embedded in his forehead. That's how a lot of friends feel about each other, right? So that's why never boast about fiddling your taxes. It's just not a good thing, because every single time, right, the taxman gets a report. Believe me, when I say the taxman, I always said tax office, because as if to say there's an actual taxman, right? The tax office gets a report. They go and they investigate every single report, because that's what they do. I mean, it's like being stopped by a traffic police officer and you've got 4 bald tires on your car, right? And you're thinking, well, maybe I can speak to him. No, don't bother. You're going to get done for it. They're a traffic police officer. That's what they do, right? The best thing you could do is when you try and speak out in court. Don't try and speak out with him. He's a traffic police officer. Now, if it's a normal police officer, you could probably look, I didn't realise they was bald. But what I would do, right, is I will leave the car right here. I'll get it picked up and straight to a garage and have all 4 tyres changed. Regular police officer might go, all right, go on, I'll let you run with that. Traffic police officer, no. In fact, right, I'm going to get a jack out, right, and jack up the car and see what's underneath. And I'm going to check all under everywhere, right, under your bonnet and your boot and everything. I'm going to check everything. That's what traffic police officer would do, right? So when you play with a taxman, right, and I can tell you exactly when this happened to Donald Trump. I can tell you exactly the exact time. Well, I can't tell you the exact time and date, but I can tell you exactly where it was. And it was when he was up with in the debate with Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump decided. I think Hillary Clinton must have said something about him not paying his taxes, and Donald Trump decided to say, "Well, I'm smart." And right there, that right there, was the thing that got him this $355 million fine, right, and a 3-year ban. Right. And I think there's something like 9% interest on this as well. So $355 million going to build up a lot of interest at 9%. Right. And I think his son's got something like a $4 million fine each, plus their ban, I think, for 2 years from running a business in New York. Right. But when you decide, you know what, you're going to take the piss, right, stick the middle finger up to the taxman. Of all people, the motherfucker, jailed Al Capone. Al Capone murdered a whole heap of people, right? A whole heap of racketeering and everything, right? They couldn't get him on none of that, right? So it's just like, you know what? They got him 11 years on. They got him 11 years on. I read this, years ago. Well, I think they got him. I think they got 11 years. He died in prison anyway, right? But that's where they got him. The one thing, right? The one thing that nobody can mess about with is the tax. And Donald Trump is quite lucky, yeah, that they didn't Wesley Snipes his ass, because the black guy got thrown in prison for tax, for tax evasion. I don't know what the laws are with tax avoidance in America, but what these guys was doing was tax evasion. Tax avoidance is completely legal, right? Because that's what rich people do. Right, you go to an accountant and say, listen, I've got like £10 million. How can I avoid paying any tax on this money? Right? And they'll say, listen, we can do this, and this, and this, right? And then you have to pay £500 in tax, right? Plus £500,000 to me for my fee. But that £500,000, right, is a lot less than what the tax would have been on £10 million. So you might look at £500,000. Yeah, well, £500. Yeah. So that's how those guys work with their tax avoidance. Yeah, with their tax avoidance. Right. But when you absolutely go out to fiddle your taxes, then you get Wesley Snipes. That's what happens to you. And Donald Trump is quite lucky that this wasn't that this didn't go criminal, because for anybody else this would have been criminal, because he was increasing the values of his property to get favourable loans, right? And then he'll decrease the value for other things, right? So those other things would involve the tax, because there's what other reason would you have to devalue your property other than taxes or divorce? What other reasons? If you can think of any other reasons, I'm sure I would love to read them in the comments. Alexei Navalny has died in a Siberian prison. Or can we say Alexei Navalny was murdered in a Siberian prison? Well, then again, I think they said that he went out for a walk and then apparently he just died. That's normally what happens in Russia. But if you are going to, because he was an openly out there critic of Putin, and I said, if you're going to be a critic of Putin, please do it from another country. Don't do it in Russia, because he went back to Russia, didn't he? And then he got arrested literally straight away, and then Putin made sure that he got like some jumped up charges, a 19-year prison sentence. Right, because he's the opposition leader, and Putin's just like, he just gets rid of people. Did you see the interview with Tucker Carlson? Right, Tucker Carlson never asked Putin no real question. He should, what you really need to ask Putin is, why is it that all your opposition leaders and anyone who opposes you ends up dead? People in England have ended up dead. How come we didn't go and bomb the Russians when they used a chemical weapon in this country? Very strange, that, isn't it? Right? But all you have to, well, Navalny had no chance anyway. Navalny should have never went back to Russia. Once he was out of Russia, he should have never went back there anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because he's seen these things so many times. People getting stabbed with umbrellas. People having a chemical weapon poured into a cup of tea. Right, rubbed on door handles, right, and then discarded in into a bin at the back of shops, where any fool will tell you, right, that people go into bins at the back of shops. They would have been much better off taking that and putting that in someone's domestic bin outside their house, because it would have probably ended up in the back of the truck, right? And as long as the bottle didn't split, it would have ended up in landfill. But the back of shops, people dive in those bins because they're looking for stock that's just slightly out of date. So people go in those bins every single night. So you have people Russians coming to this country who are so callous that they can have a chemical weapon and throw it somewhere where the general public, right, will get hold of it. That's the real, So Navalny should have never ever went back. A lot of the world leaders are coming out and saying, "Oh, this is terrible. What Putin has done. Putin's murdered this man." And say, well, we've seen him do this all the time, and what of it? Do you know what I mean? What of it? We've seen the Bin Salman murder, the journalist, and all of a sudden Bin Salman looks like he's back in the fold with all these people, racing horses in our derbies or in our Grand National, that type of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And going around the world, that's just to say, he's done nothing wrong. So these people, they can get away with all of this. So I don't know why they're talking about that about Putin. Have we heard that that there's an international warrant out for Putin at the moment for what he's doing in Ukraine? I haven't heard about no international warrant out for him yet. Right. Same with Netanyahu, no international warrant out for him yet. So these people, they can get away with all this bullshit. Do you know what I mean? So Putin, he's in a position where he can murder his Whether or not Putin's murdered him, I don't see why he needed to, because I mean the guy's doing 19 years in prison. Do you know what I mean? In Siberia. Do you know what I mean? I mean you couldn't get any worse. You probably couldn't get a worse place than that to be doing like nigh on 20 years in prison. Horrible. Steve Wright has passed away. Everyone knows Steve Wright. Steve Wright in the afternoon. I'm quite sure everyone can remember people, characters like Mr. Angry and so many other characters the guy used to have. I mean, it was like you used to wait for you couldn't wait for the music to stop just to see what he was going to do, right? Because he brought all the funny radio to. Long before, the people, whatever people who are doing it now, Steve Wright was one of the original. And I'm sure that most people in this country, would have went through, maybe listened to it with their parents when they was really young, because and it was at a time when there wasn't really that much on the radio, because there wasn't really no pirate radio stations or nothing like that. Do you know what I mean? So, Radio One and Capital would have been the big two. I mean, you move from one to Radio Two, and it to I think the two. But really sad. And not even 70 years old, I think he's like 69 years old. So it's really, really sad, you know what I mean? But it was absolutely fantastic talent. Really fantastic talent. Labour's anti-Semitism round number 2. They've got another candidate who I think they've just had to suspend, because they just suspended Azhar Ali, before the by-election. When is his by-election? But before the by-election, I don't think his one's one. I think before the by-election, and Labour win 2 by-elections yesterday. What's the day? Yeah, yesterday Labour have won 2 by-elections, right? Overturning massive majorities that the Tories have had. Now you see, the Tories, I think this Parliament, they've lost more by-elections than any other time, I think, ever. They've lost more. And that should really tell them something. I mean, that should say to them, listen, you're going in the wrong direction. The way you're going, people don't like. People don't like what you're doing. You're doing the wrong thing. They've been focusing on culture wars. Stop the boats. Illegal migration, send them to Rwanda. And what's that? All that's done is that has put that focus, right, bang in the newspapers all the time. And it's allowed reform, right, to creep right up their back and take a load of votes off of them. That's what's happened to them, right? Reformers just come, oh yeah, you keep talking about immigration because we're the real Tories, because that's who they are. They're the real Tories. But the only difference is, they're like more like your Liz Truss Tories. If you think this country hasn't sold off everything it's got, they will find more stuff to sell off. Right? That's who reform are. Right? These people thinking to themselves, oh, reform. Yeah. If reform ever got any form of power in this country, right, you would see the complete and utter collapse of the United Kingdom. Right? Because all you have to do, is just look at because they're Liz Truss type Tories, the reform. So all you'd have to do, right, is look at the book what Liz Truss helped to write, right, Britannia Unchained. Right? Just look at what they think of the British people. That is who these people are looking to vote in, right? Where they've been playing their stupid ass culture wars, instead of the Tories saying, what we're gonna deal with, we're gonna deal with the housing market, we're gonna deal with social housing, we're gonna get social housing back up and running in this country, we're gonna deal with the NHS, we're gonna deal with the cost of living crisis, we're going to make sure that utility companies are not ripping you off anymore. That would be some good pledges. No? Oh, okay, we just want to deal with culture wars. Right? We want to halve the inflation. Now, inflation has got nothing to do with them. Nothing at all to do with them. Right? So he that's something that he knew, where inflation was, I can't remember what it was 9-10% in it, right? So whereas it was that high, right, it was obviously that would have broken down. That's obvious that's going to happen, but that's got nothing to do with him. Instead of him studying, right, and setting out to do things to really help the people of the country, He's focusing on culture wars. And culture wars has lost him two absolutely massive majorities. I mean, then again, I think 8,000 people voted for Peter Bone's missus, Peter Bone's girlfriend, right, who was standing for the Tories. Right? She still managed to muster up 8,000 votes. And you think, well, why? What have those people seen that we haven't seen? Or that I haven't seen? I don't know. You might look at the Tories and say, these are good people, right? But for me, they're a load of crap. They're complete and utter shit. And the fact that these people hate our guts, it should be us that hates them. And they hate us. It's an absolute liberty. Just taking the absolute piss that they hate us. So much so that they're sold the fall. Because, who else would you do that to? Why would you do that to someone? If you were sent to prison and then you come home to find out that your neighbour, who you really got on with, used to look after their children. They used to look after your children. You come out of jail to find out they've sold off all your stuff. Why would you do that to me if you like me? I said, well, secretly, we've always hated you. That's why we sold off all your stuff. Even down to the light bulbs and the fittings. That's why we sold off because we hate you, really. We despise you. If they like you, you come back out and all your stuff will still be in your house. They wouldn't have broke in, all right, at all, and stole all your stuff and sold it all. That is people who can't stand you do that to you, because you know what? They don't want you to benefit from anything. Why should you benefit from anything? So that's the reason why the Tories, right, have just got a right shellacking. And it serves them right. It couldn't have happened to nicer people. You just say, you know what, it couldn't have happened to nicer people. They're going to blame, Rishi Sunak, is to blame for his time in government. But the truth is, the Tories really had this coming anyway. Right, no matter who they had, it should have still actually been Boris Johnson to be getting all of this, because Boris Johnson has left saying, well, you know what, in politics I was always a winner. I never lost an election, always was a winner. Didn't get a chance really, to see what happened. And I have a feeling that Rishi Sunak could well lose his seat. Right? This Asian, insert the P word, because we're speaking about the far right, trying to suck up to people who call him by the P word, trying to suck up to them. And look, he's been humiliated everywhere, all over the place. How much people do you think that today are saying, well, we should put in those letters and get him out? Put in the letters, get him out. Colin Pitchfork has been given the right to go in front of the parole board again. If he committed his crimes today, he would have. He certainly wouldn't have had that opportunity, because he would have got a whole life sentence. And I think that retroactive, whatever that word is, right? That's what they should do. Go back and say, actually, no, we're going to just have you like a whole life sentence, because you did get a life sentence anyway. So we're just going to keep you here forever, because this man, right, is the world's biggest manipulator. This is a guy, who probably could have run a cult if he wanted to. Right? If he was a bit richer, right, he probably could have run a cult, and then he probably wouldn't have had to abduct and murder people's children. He probably would have had, probably could have had his hands on as many children as he wanted to, because this guy, the way how this guy's brain works is different to a lot of people, because this guy managed to convince his friend, right, to go and take his DNA test for him. Now, I'm sorry, but, if you ask me to take your DNA test for you, then I'm going to really going to question why you need me to take your DNA test for you. And there's not really much, because I know most times, that people don't want their DNA is because, you could rape, murder, paedophilia. Those are the three things, that people will be like, oh, listen, any chance you could take my DNA test for me, because I think that the police are going to try and set me up for this crime, what's going on. And I can tell you, police don't set up people for DNA crimes. If they've got your DNA, they're not going to set up somebody else for it, because they want you. They want the person who's committed that horrendous offence. So they want you. They don't want anybody else, because they know if they don't get you, then you're going to go on to murder much, much more people. until they actually catch you. So that's why they want you. So they don't set up people with things like DNA. If police have got DNA, right, it's not because they want to set up anybody. It's because they want to eliminate the people, right? So for him to be able to convince his friend, because there's no one in the world who could convince me to, listen, can you do my DNA test for me? Because, I think the police are going to try and set me up for something. I might find myself in the police station saying, listen, you know what? Yeah, I'm kind of concerned that this person has asked me to do their DNA test for them. Could you look into it? Secretly, of course. I don't want to be seen as a grass. Shoplifting and assault on shop staff, right, has gone up something like between 50 and 80%. It's flown up. I suppose when you have people living in a country where they can't afford their cost of living, and you make things like cigarettes into a main commodity, so much so that people are prepared to drive a car through a shop window to go in there with sacks and clear out the cigarettes. Because, a packet of cigarettes now, it's 16, 17 pounds, right? That's probably your Bensons and all your top brands, right? Now, you could quite easily take that to the shopkeeper around the corner, right? Who will always buy it off of you. Always. I was a newsagent for 10 years. I guarantee you that any shopkeeper, you go in there, right, with 100 packets of fags, right, that would be like 16, 17 pounds, right? You go in there and ask for a tenner, they'll probably knock you down. They probably might give you £8 a packet or whatever, but they're going to buy them. They'll even buy them for the tenner. Right? Even 11, 12 quid they'll buy it for, because it still runs to a lot cheaper than they're making. So, if they could get them off you for 100 packets off you for 8 quid, then they're gonna run with that. And any shopkeeper will just take that off of you. So that's what they've done. They've turned these things into a major commodity. A jar of coffee, 7, 8 pounds or £9, and a block of cheese for 7 or 8 quid. Right. So, you've got people who go shopping and it's like, you know what? If I could just slip a block of cheese in my pocket and like a jar of coffee, do you know what I mean? It's like, 15, 16 quid. Do you know what I mean? I've only got £35 to do my shopping. Do you know what I mean? I need so much stuff. Do you know what I mean? I haven't got enough to buy that. If I do, it's going to take virtually half of the money that I've got on me. Do you know what I mean? There's other stuff so they've turned all these things into major commodities. Do you know what I mean? People going in and they're just going with a bag and just try and clear out all the steaks, because they know if they're on a state, or they've got people down the local pub or whatever, and listen, you know what? Yeah, these steaks, they're like £12, right? Yeah, I'll give me a fiver. Easy sale. That's the thing with these things. Easy sale. Right. They've done this to this country. Right. They've turned, and then people trying to stop people from shoplifting, so they assault the members of staff. So the shops are saying to people, listen, do not try and stop anyone. If you try and stop anyone, right, we're going to sack you, because you know what? They might have a knife. They might stab you. Don't be chasing people down the road and all that. Just leave them. Right. Police are apparently the police are going to take it more seriously now, but we'll see what's happened there. The UK is in recession. Is this a Brexit story or what? The UK, the United Kingdom, is in recession. And if you've seen any of my videos, right, I've been telling you for the longest of time, the United Kingdom has been in recession for probably about 2 years now. What do you think? Because people can't afford their lives. That doesn't happen unless you're in recession. All they're doing, they've just been massaging the figures, like they do with the unemployment figures. They just massage the figures as much as they can. Right? They find little ways of putting in little things. Oh no, this is this, so we can leave out those people off of the figures. So they do that, right? And we'll probably reach the stage where the Bank of England has just said, listen, you know what? Now, you have to announce it now because like we've been putting this off for much too long now. 18 months we've been putting this off for. 17 months, 16 months, 12 months we've been putting this off for. If you was watching By Any Means Necessary, who is not an economist, he's been telling you a long time ago that this country is in recession. All this, with growth of like quarter of a 0.25%. What? What the fuck is that? Right? So it's just nonsense, right? When you talk about growth, you want 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%. Right? Not a quarter of a quarter. That's whatever that is, an eighth. An eighth of growth. Right? It's just nonsense. Right? We've been in recession for the longest of time. Why do you think all these businesses are closing down? You think all these high street businesses wanted to close down? No. Closing down because they can't afford to run their businesses. Because the country's been in recession for the longest of time. I can tell you from my own type of business. This is a Brexit story. From my own business, I can tell you, because my business has been going down. I've got a little pallet business. Just supplying. I supply pallets. I make and supply and repair pallets. Supply to pallet yards. I don't supply them to the retail companies, just the pallet yards. And right now, all their yards are full to the brim with pallets. All of them. And you know why that is? Tell you why. Because if before Brexit, right, we had 10 million. This is just basic, right? If, for example, we had 10 million pallets going into the EU before, now we've got 2 million going in. So the other 8 million are floating about in Britain. So it's destroyed so many in my business, it destroyed so many little companies within my business alone. I'm going to tell you, it's the Brexit effect. But anyway, the British farmers, this is Brexit. The British farmers plan more French-style tractor protests this weekend. And I heard what you said. Who gives a shit? Exactly. Organisers called for a national effort to protest against low supermarket prices. They want us to go out and protest against low supermarket prices. After so much of these farmers voted for Brexit. So now they're saying to us, well, you go out and you shoot yourself in both feet and both hands, just like we did, right? Because you don't want those cheap inputs from the EU. What's that going to do to our business? I don't know. Perhaps you should listen to Project Fair when people was telling you this is going to destroy your business. And now they want us to be out protesting, right, about cheap inputs from post-Brexit deals. These people are off them. I think what's happened is they was walking down the road, they've fallen over and they've hit their head on the curb, a raised curb. You know, that thick paving slab, the thick pieces. Right on there. They cracked right on the temple. Because that's how stupid these people are. Right? They banana skinned it. Right? And now they're looking for sympathy from us, for us to go out and protest against the supermarkets' low prices. Not that the prices in supermarkets are low, because they certainly ain't. If anything, we should be going out and protesting that the prices are too high in the supermarkets and these bitch asses are profiteering. Because I'm sure when they release their profits, it's going to be something like the same as what British Gas is. Where they tell us, oh, everything's more expensive for us. But you're making 10 times more than you've ever made before. Why are kids doing the Brexit tackle? They're just mocking adults. You know, these kids, what they need to do, is they need to be seen and not heard, and keep their little mouths quiet and shut up. Right? How dare they? I'm standing up for the Brexiters right now. How dare these children mock Brexiters? Don't you dare, children, mock Brexiters. That's for adults to do. Only adults for Brexit. Now, you know what, because what this is, this is about, right, the difference between adults joking about stuff and kids joking about stuff, right? I know Brexiters are stupid, right, but kids have no right, right, to be making stuff up about a Brexit tackle. A Brexit tackle is quite simple. It's a tackle that, it's a meaningless tackle. For example, if you was on the halfway line, for example, and you gave someone the hardest tackle you've ever seen, they end up probably injuring you and the other person, right? You'll get up and say, well, that's Brexit. Don't you think that's taking the piss from these kids? How the hell? Who has even thought of that? I'm nearly 40 minutes in on this video. But one more story. Brexit Britain has significantly underperformed other advanced economies, says Goldman Sachs. And I mean, they would know because you know why? They are the money people. And one of the things what they said, they said there's three things that they focused on. One of them was about trade. One of them was about, how our export and import trade has just been destroyed. And the other one was about, investment into this country. Right? And as I've been saying, I'm quite sure if you go back and watch any of my other videos, right, you'll see me where I say that this country cannot grow. It's impossible for it to grow because no one wants to come and invest in this country. I'll give you a simple example, right? If you've got a shop and you have the same 50 customers coming every single day and they buy the same stuff every day, right? Then from that point, your shop's not going to grow, is it? You've got the same 50 customers coming in, you're servicing those customers. You might be doing all right, but it's not going to grow. New factory across the road opens. Now you've got an extra 300 customers. Now your business grows, doesn't it? Because you've got people coming and say to you, I've noticed that you haven't got any, you haven't got any sherbet lemons. You say, oh, no, look, I'll get them in. Next time you come in, they'll be in here. Someone will come and say, look, see, you've got Ribena. You haven't got no strawberry Ribena. Someone else come in, oh, look, you haven't got no Rothmans. Can you get me some Rothmans? Right? So that's what will happen. So your business will grow because you've had a new injection of more people, new injection of cash. Nobody is coming to invest in this country. And even if they do, right, the money is just going to be circular because they're only coming to service the people that are in this country, because it's pointless coming to this country to try and run a business internationally because, we have managed to cut ourselves off from our closest market. So much so that we've decided we'll cut ourselves off from our closest market and we'll go as far as we can away from our own shores to go and do trade deals with countries halfway across the world when we've got Europe 26 miles away from us at certain points. Anyway, my friends, I've gone way over on this video. It's quite a long video. It's 41, nearly 42 minutes. And by the time I stop talking, it will be 42 minutes. But there's a proverb that I need to leave you with. And that is, what is the difference between humans and animals? Animals do not allow the dumb ones to lead them. My friends, this is By Any Means Necessary. I'm the MC John Ribbs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.